Let's actually dive into the trucker situation in Canada, because I don't think we've talked that much about it, mostly because it's stupid. But I think it's instructive to dive a little bit deeper into these right-wing protests here in Canada. So in Canada, there's a group of people calling themselves the Freedom Convoy. It's truckers mostly, but sympathizers as well. They're essentially anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers, and they're cloaking themselves in this aura of workers' rights, this aesthetic of fighting for the everyday person. But they aren't fighting for higher wages for all. They're not working to get more bargaining power for other truckers, more benefits.
Or safety. They're actually fighting against that.
Yeah, right. Against worker safety, but yet they are for workers' rights. So they're basically just upset about COVID protocols. There are other truckers in the United States who are actually fighting for material benefits for all. They aren't getting 1% of the media coverage. Right now, conservative media in the United States is heralding these Canadian truckers as these benevolent heroes. But right now here, I am interested if someone like Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham wants to pick up on the story. Maybe they haven't seen it. Bradley, if you could pull this up. XPO port truckers in the west coast of the United States, they are currently fighting to unionize. And yet that hundreds of Southern California port truckers have launched a unionization bid to fight their increasingly brutal working conditions. When there's a discussion about workers' rights and how truckers are so important for our supply chains and for the maintenance of capitalism, especially when that's discussed on the right, working conditions, union efforts, that's not a part of the conversation. No. It's all about truckers and their individual right to not get vaccinated.
This is an anti-union, basically a right-to-work convoy, and it's a right to work instead of the typical right to work without a union. It's the right to work without safety concerns. Like another one just mentioned, this was October 13th in Toledo, Ohio. 30 workers walking the picket line at a Stericycle medical waste disposal plant. We heard from a caller last night on Left Reckoning that there are maybe more Stericycle actions going on for the truckers for that company. So yeah, it's what is emphasized, and is it pro boss? I mean, these are very simple questions, and there shouldn't be no confusion. Like, we shouldn't even need the fact that in their chats they're talking about Hitler and that sort of far right stuff, right? This is a right to work convoy. It's a pro boss convoy. It's a get back to the status quo.
It's a bootlicker convoy.
Yeah, it's a get back to the status quo of capitalism, and that's why its biggest cheerleaders here are capitalists.
Right. And we'll get to their far right views in a second. But I think the fact that this story continues to grow, there are more freedom convoys sprouting in other border crossings in Canada. The main one that they're disrupting is the border between Detroit and Ottawa. Automakers have been affected. There were at least 2 Ford plants that had to shut down because these parts are not getting there. And I think some other auto manufacturers are considering doing the same. Businesses in the area have been affected, let alone the people that live by these border crossing areas and in these cities hearing the blaring horns of these far-right protesters. It's pissing them off. But the bottom line is, as Matt and I have already laid out, this is not about workers' rights. This is about far-right whining. 80% of Canada is vaccinated. I believe over 90% of truckers in Canada are vaccinated because to cross the border and to come back into Canada, you need to be vaccinated. So these people are a fringe. There have been reports of assaults perpetrated by the group.
I haven't looked into this, but video of a attack on an apartment complex, it looked kind of troubling. It shouldn't be a difficult call on this one, frankly.
Well, let's let one of the leaders of this convoy make that call for us a little bit less difficult. This is Pat King. Here he is in 2019. Just making clear where his political perspective lies. And let's also be clear, as Matt pointed out in the chats of this convoy, this is not a fringe position in terms of where the politics of this group in general are at.
Now, what it is the part of the depopulation. And a lot of people don't understand what that means. And what there is there's an end game. It's called depopulation of the Caucasian race, or the Anglo-Saxon. And that's what the goal is to depopulate the Anglo-Saxon race. Because they are the ones with the strongest bloodlines. And we'll leave it at that, because then we get into a whole different topic. But it's a depopulation of race. Okay, that's what they want to do. I've spoken before about how we have Ahmed Ahmadinejad, or Mahmed. I can't say their names very well because I don't have the dialect that they do. But
do you think we got the gist? Do you think we got the gist about this guy? Just in case, let me quickly read, though, too, from the New York Times about this guy. Pat King, who is listed as an official contact for a regional group involved in the protests and has been the prominent champion of the protests online, has called COVID a, quote, man-made bioweapon, and claimed that international financiers, I wonder what religion those financiers are, seek to, quote, depopulate the Anglo-Saxon race. He has said of lockdowns, the only way that this is going to be solved is with bullets. And the New York Times also says this influence and the inspiration and financial aid from some within the American far right is hardly hidden at the protests. Pro-Trump and QAnon signs are frequently visible, as are figures like Ramanda Diludu, a Canadian QAnon activist, Didulo, I should say, Canadian QAnon activist who has called for military executions of doctors who vaccinate children.
We have another video posted by Q Anthony Omin on Twitter, originally from Nephrite1312. But do you have this? This is from their Zello chats, Bradley. If we can just put that up.
I'm seeing this cold.
Yeah, well, yeah, be prepared, because this is,
Really interesting fact, since we were talking about the Nazis were actually fighting Antifa. A lot. I don't know if anybody in here has actually ever translated it. And again, I'm not saying the dude was right at all. I'm simply saying
the dude is.
If you look at what he actually said, because since I've been on Telegram, I've met people from Germany, and they've translated the videos
That's probably enough, Bradley. We can
of Hitler's speeches.
Yeah, so that's the political education that's going on in, and I like Q Anthony's point about like all the people posing as leftists, saying that we should take this at face value, and this is actually the revolution. Okay, go organize them into your communist party. Like, let's see how hospitable and how open these people are to, like, challenging capitalism as communists.
Right. I mean, or how much people who honestly are that naive would be willing to compromise in order to let these people cosplaying as pro-worker advocates into their fold. That's the trade-off here. And so pretending like these people are on our side or this is legitimate in any way, it's a detriment. Just because they cloak themselves in the aesthetic of workers' rights does not mean they are representing workers, and that's borne out in the numbers in Canada for sure.
Yeah, it's laundering, whether you want to call it fascism or just pro-boss propaganda. It's what it is.
Yep. If you thought the Bundys were actually fighting government tyranny, I would think that you might also be the kind of person who's sympathetic to this convoy. And that means that you're an idiot.